Welcome, Darryl. I am so excited to have you on the program today.
Thank you for having me, Meg. I really appreciate you.
So, one of the big reasons that I'm so excited to have you is to talk about how finances can affect burnout. And so, I always start with the question, have you ever been burned out?
Oh, great question, Meg. Great question. Yes, I have. I have been burnt out. And the reason why I know I've burnt out is because one morning I woke up and I looked in the mirror and the left side of my face was paralyzed, and it still is. So I can only move the right side of my face. So what happened is I realized that I was trying to take care of everyone else, and I forgot to invest in myself, right? So I had the weight of the world on my shoulders. I was the yes person for everyone else. And I like to share a brief story with you, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
So there's a movie with Superman, right? And the helicopter flies into the building, and Lois Lane falls out of the helicopter. And she's saying, help me, help me, help me. Someone help me. And out of nowhere, Superman appears and he scoops her up, Meg, and he says, don't worry, Lois, I got you. I got you, Lois. And she looks at him and says, well, if you got me, who has you?
Yeah.
If you got me, who have you? So we are all trying to save the world and take care of everyone else, but we fail to put the oxygen mask on ourselves first.
Absolutely. That really hits home for me, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners, because this is our job. This is what we do. We take care of patients all day, every day, and rarely do we put ourselves, who's got us?
Indeed. Indeed. We when we come to see, the doctors, the PAs and everyone, we're at our most vulnerable times in our lives. And if they're not able to help us, then who can? So, yeah, I would employ all of your colleagues to take time out of their busy schedules. And Warren Buffett once said, the best investment you can make is investing in yourself. So I would implore your colleagues and all of your listeners to take time out and invest in themselves. That's the best investment you can make.
I think one of the things that is very hard for us, especially being on the side of medicine of treating, is being vulnerable enough to be the patient. And it's really hard. Like when I go in, I don't like sitting in the exam chair. I really don't. It really bothers me. It's very hard to be the patient. And when you're
Yes.
on the other side of the table, I just think there's that much more difficulty getting to that vulnerable position to say, I need help. I'm
Right.
suffering, or I'm hurting, or I'm hurt.
Yeah, I agree with that. The three hardest things for people to say, one is, I love you. Two is, I'm sorry. And three, which is the most important, is, I need help.
Yeah.
I need help.
I couldn't agree with that more. I haven't heard that before. And I could not agree with that more. When I think about the hardest things for me to say, it is definitely those three things. And it's almost as if I got better at saying I love you. I got better at I'm gonna say I'm trying to get better at asking for help. But man, it is hard. It is really hard. And saying I'm sorry in the right context, it's much easier for me now. I think there's still contexts where it's very, very difficult for me, but asking for help is still really, really tough for me.
Yeah, all three of those what I say to my life coaching clients, I'm a certified life coach. What I say to my life coaching clients is that it takes strong people to ask for those three things or say those things. It takes a strong person to say, I love you. It takes a strong person to say, I'm sorry, when you know you're wrong, even if you may not be wrong, but just to be able to move forward, to be able to say, I'm sorry, right? We waste so much of time on the little things that are occurring when we can go ahead and continue to strive for the bigger things and bigger goals in our lives. But instead, we stay restricted and not able to move forward because of these simple words, just to say, I'm sorry, right? And there are so many things that we can accomplish in our lives when we say, I need help. I need help. I need help. This is something so easy to say. It takes strong people to say that. Most people think that you're a weak person if you say these three things. But it takes a strong person. It takes winners. It takes go-getters to say, I need help. And help is available. Help is available. We will be surprised the minute we ask for help. There's so many people that will run to our aid.
I have been surprised. I definitely thought for years I could not ask for help. I thought it was a sign of weakness. I thought if I couldn't handle it, that I was not good enough in some way. And it was interesting that when I stumbled and fell and really had a lot of trouble, when I stepped up and asked for help, I was very surprised. I didn't think it would be there. And I think that's part of the reason I didn't want to ask. I've been very, very surprised at how much help is there and support is there when you ask for it. And it really was eye-opening to me.
Yeah, so many of us are willing to help others, but not willing to ask for help.
Yeah. It's so
Isn't that
true.
almost a walking contradiction, right? Like we love to help others. We love to pour out help and being able to assist others, especially in your field.
Mm-hmm.
But we fail to ask for help, and we fail to help ourselves, even though when our body and our mind and our spirit is giving us so many warnings, so many red flags. So for me, waking up and looking in the mirror and seeing the left side of my face is paralyzed, I thought I was dying, Meg. I thought I was having a stroke.
Mm-hmm.
But after going to the doctors and the PAs, and thankfully they were there to help me because I was brave enough to go and seek help, they diagnosed me with Bell palsy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But my mind and my body and my spirit, when I looked in that mirror, they were telling me, you better get it together, Darryl. You better get it together.
And I am so glad it was Bell's palsy and not a stroke.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't imagine that it's easy to live with. I have a surgeon that I worked with that had Bell's palsy, and he was very aware of it. And it was difficult for him. He opened up to me a few times just how difficult it was for him to greet patients and felt like he couldn't smile with them. And it was difficult for him to walk through the world. But Bell's palsy isn't a stroke, and it is not the same. A stroke can knock out brain. It can knock out, so much function. And Bell's palsy is an inflammation of a nerve. And this was your body giving you a big sign. And I'm glad that you understood that. And number one, got help. But number two, it sounds like you pushed the reset button when you saw this.
Indeed, I did in every way possible. It even pushed me towards creating my first book. So several things was occurring in my life at that time, right? And I had lost my father. So just picture me in the hospital room, my mother on one side of the bed, my father on the other. I'm sorry, I'm on the other side of the bed. My mother's on the other side of the bed, and my father is dying from lung cancer, right? And he's calling out to his mother, and he looks at me, he looks at my mother, And I say to him, Meg, it's okay, you can go. And he took his last breath. So with that, contributing to other things that was going on in my life, trying to take care of everyone else, because I felt like I had to step up and be the leader of the family now.
Yeah.
Right. And I would say to anyone, do not put that burden on your shoulder. Do not put that burden on your shoulder. Take care of yourself and be a great example to your friends, your coworkers, and your family, and they will follow your lead. But don't put that burden on yourself, believing that you have to put the world on your shoulders or the world on your back.
Somebody once talked to me about when we take responsibility for others, like you're saying, I was taking responsibility for my family. It's almost as if we put them in a position where they can't do for themselves. And
Yes.
when we take on that burden, it's almost taking away from them. And you're right, when
Yes.
you don't take on that burden and you show them through actions how you're caring for yourself and how you're taking care of yourself, it is a much stronger message to them about you can do this too. If I can do this, you can do this. And
Yes.
I think that's an important point to bring home, because we oftentimes just want to put the weight of the world on our shoulders, but we're taking power away from others when we do that. They can empower themselves and we can help them by showing them the way.
I agree. I agree. So while I was going through experiencing these trials and tribulations and this loss in my life, I began to journal. And I would suggest to anyone that, start journaling, because it's very therapeutic. And the journaling, I was able to create my first book. So the journal turned into a book. And the book became a bestseller.
That is
And the
incredible.
title of the book, to piggyback off of what you said a few minutes ago about listening to your body, the title of the first book is called I Know You Hear Me, but Are You Listening? I
Yes,
know you hear me, but are you listening? It was my mind, my body, and my spirit telling me, you better get it together, Darryl.
that
You
is
better
incredible.
get it together.
I love that. First of all, I'm a big proponent of journaling, but it's amazing to me that your experience through journaling turned into something from the depths of your soul when you're journaling, turned into something that others needed to hear and read. And that's the incredible things that can happen when we open up to taking care of ourselves and going through our emotions, because we're all human and we have similar emotions and similar trials and tribulations, and your story can be that powerful story for that many other people.
Well, the incredible thing is can happen when you listen, right? When you listen. So I chose to listen to my body. I chose to listen to my intuition, when my intuition said to me that you need to share this with the world. So I could have been selfish and said, no, I'm going to just go ahead and journal and just keep this to myself and keep it, private. But I felt the need to be vulnerable. I felt the need to be transparent, which also would help someone get out of their own way. A lot of us, my clients that come to me, most people ask, well, what do you do for a living? So I usually tell them I help people get out of their own way.
Yeah, it's true.
I help people get out of their own way.
We all have the power to do it.
Right. And when my clients come to me, my life coaching clients come to me, I say to them, ask them two questions, Meg. And one is, what are your goals and what are your distractions? We can't reach our goals until we eliminate or at least minimize our distractions. And our distractions, which I wrote another book called Mr. and Mrs. Distraction. But our distractions will create that burnout.
So why do you think that is?
Well, again, it's because we fail to listen. We fail to listen, and we tend to believe what we was raised on. Keep grinding, keep grinding. Stay there and do it all day, 7 days a week. Just keep grinding, keep grinding. Grinding is to tear down, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Focus. Grinding is activity, right? It's the hamster and the gerbil and the wheel, just constantly going. But people say that I'm grinding as if it's a honor, and it's so far from the truth. Grinding is activity. Now, focus is different. Focus is productivity. So when you focus on something, you can be productive, but you also can manage your health,
Mhm.
your spirit, your energy, and your finances. But
But
if
when
you're
you're
growing, I'm
but
sorry,
when
go
you're
ahead. Go ahead,
no,
Meg.
go ahead. But when you're grinding, you can't.
You cannot. You cannot.
So when I talk about burnout and I'm hearing you say words that are in line with what I feel about burnout is that when we are not in line with our intuition, with our authentic self, we're not listening to that small little voice inside of us kind of helping us, guide us. I feel like that is when we burn out the worst. And I think it's very hard to hear that when we're grinding.
Indeed, indeed, because these are distractions. These distractions they're distracting us from listening to our intuition. So to your audience, to your listeners, just in case someone is listening, they're feeling that, well, Meg isn't talking to me, Darryl isn't talking about me. So let me just share some symptoms of being burnt out, just in case you think this podcast is not for you. So one is feeling exhausted. Two would be feeling empty, feeling drained. Three would be mentally drained. The next would be feeling not having any motivation, not feeling motivated. Next would be, which one that I really love, is feeling stressed out. Feeling stressed out. Feeling self-doubt. And feeling alone.
Yes.
So out of all these that I mentioned, the choices could be A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, or all of the above. At one time in my life, it was all of the above, especially as being a entrepreneur. That is a lonely journey. Not everyone can fit in your boat.
Right.
So you have to acknowledge these symptoms. And we spoke about the symptoms of being burnt out. Let's now focus on the tips of how to recover from being burnt out.
Yes.
Which is very important, I believe. So number one would be meditation. I love meditation. I love it so much that I even have a moo pond in my backyard.
What's a mupon?
So a moo pond is where you have it's almost like a water that's constantly flowing. And all that you hear, you have the decorations around it, and some people even have maybe fish in their pond. I prefer not to do that. But I have this moo pond, and I just recently had some people visiting our home, some family members visiting our home, my wife and I home. And the biggest compliment that we always get is, I've never slept like this before in my life. So we consider our home a stress-free zone.
That's fantastic.
Because people find themselves waking up and sleeping longer and waking up and begin to meditate. And some people never even meditated before. But it's because of the environment that we've created. So meditation is very helpful for recovery. And I'll discuss one of my clients that came to me, and she said, Darryl, I'm experiencing back pain, before I even get out of bed. I said, well, you may need a chiropractor and not a life coach. So you might be at the wrong place. But what I said to her, Meg, is that after having several discussions with her, I realized that before she even get out of the bed, Meg, the first thing she does is grab her cell phone on her nightstand. Before her feet even touch the ground, touch the floor, touch the carpet in her room, the minute she opened her eyes, the first thing she do is grab her phone. Mm-hmm. And I said to her, you are inviting so much of bad energy and so much of stress into your life before you even get out of bed. So now she's gotten to the point where she leaves her phone in a separate place in her home. And she's realized that she gets out of the bed now and she's feeling better than ever. Yes. These simple things. It can be the simple things in life. We tend to look at our phone before we go to bed, and we look at our phone as soon as we wake up. So now I understand in your field, you have to be by your phone, and your colleagues, they have to be by their phone. They're on call and things of that nature. But when you have the moments where you have your off days, and I'm going to speak to that also, you have those off days, invest in yourself so that you don't have that back pain. Mm-hmm. Another tip for recovering from burnout would be exercise. 30 minutes. 30 minutes. Not saying, you have to go and train for a marathon, but just 30 minutes. 30 minutes. These simple things will help you recover from being burnt out.
And when I can't do 30 minutes all at once, I've definitely done 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, done some squats when I'm waiting for the dinner water to boil. You can fit these in that adds up to 30 minutes a day, because sometimes I do have really crazy days that 30 minutes is tough to carve out, but you can carve out, these moments in time where you're still moving your body and your body is getting the benefits of that exercise. So if 30 minutes sounds like a lot, you can definitely, take little pieces and parts and put it together for 30 minutes.
Right. It doesn't have to be a complete 30 minutes all in one time, mm-hmm. And also maybe park a little further away from the store, the door that you're going to, so these little increments of exercise throughout the day. By the end of the day, our people do their steps. So you get your steps in and you get your 30 minutes in, and, you'll feel a lot better. Which brings me to the next tip, is self-care. Self-care. I speak to that so much because I recall looking in the mirror and seeing my face paralyzed. That was lack of self-care. That was lack of self-care. Practice mindful techniques.
Tell me more about that.
Practice mindful techniques. There's something I also advise my clients to do, my life coaching clients, is to practice mirror work. So mirror work is, to anyone that's not familiar with it, mirror work is standing in front of the mirror 10 minutes in the morning. At night, I prefer the morning, and repeat positive affirmations. So the mirror holds what you deposit. And a mirror is a reflection and what you see in that reflection. So that's only giving back what you see and what you deposit into that mirror. So if you're going to look in the mirror, why not deposit positive affirmations such as I am, I will, I can. I am, I will, I can. I will become the best version of myself.
What's really interesting about mirror work, and I want to touch on this just a little bit, is that oftentimes, I'm a woman in America, I look in the mirror and immediately I notice something, right? Oh, the wrinkles, oh, the fat, oh, the whatever it is. And I've really had to catch myself because it's an immediate thing that comes in and I almost don't hear it until I'm making sure like I'm tuning in and saying, tut, tut, like I don't need that. But one of the most powerful things I've done in the mirror, and it was actually really hard, and you touched on this earlier, was looking in the mirror, looking myself in the eye and saying, I love you just the way you are, all of your faults, all of your imperfections, just the way you are. And
I love that.
That was really hard. Like you said, I love you is one of the hardest things to say. I was surprised at how hard it was to say it to myself. And that's
Right.
really, that gets me. Like, I'm still like, woo, that still gets me. We should be able to give ourselves that love that we give other people. And that really was a stark contrast to me that I can give. I'm gotten really good at saying I love you to others. And it was really hard to say to myself.
Yes. But once you say it to yourself, it just flows off of your tongue. It's so easy to say to others or so. Mm-hmm. One of the other tips I like to share is take a mental health day off. It is imperative to take a mental health day off, especially the times that we were in recently with the pandemic. I can't imagine what you and your colleagues had to deal with at that time. And all I can only think of in those moments is that I just hope they're able to take these mental health day off. I'm sure it didn't seem possible, but I hope now you and your colleagues and your listeners are able to take advantage of this now. I have really high hopes because of the conversation that we are having today about being burnt out, about more and more people are asking for help. Mm-hmm. So I have really, really high hopes for the results in the next generation.
Yeah.
Because of these conversations, they will learn and they will know and they will see that it's okay to take a mental health day off. Mm-hmm. It's okay to be patient with yourself so that you can be patient with others. So I thank you and I applaud you having this platform and this discussion.
Well, thank you. I do think so I now schedule a day off at least once a month. I do it ahead of time so that I don't inconvenience patients because we have patients that come from very far away. And I really get uncomfortable when I'm inconveniencing patients. And I know that's my stuff, but I try. So it's interesting, I'll schedule the day off. It is my mental health day. And what's interesting is that I want to be transparent about that. Like, I want to tell people at work, this is my mental health day. And that's been hard for me to do. But I think that's the courageous thing so that somebody else can say to me confidently, I'm taking a mental health day, right? Because there's a ripple effect. And even though I'm putting it in my schedule and I know it's my mental health day, I haven't labeled it as such. And I think the next courageous thing for me to do would be to let people know that whatever day it is, it's usually like the 5th Friday or 4th Friday, I'm going to tell people it's my mental health day, because I think that will have an effect on those around me, saying, I'm a leader, I am doing this, it's okay for you to do it too. And you just kind of brought that up in me. And I think that's my next courageous step.
Yeah, and being courageous is contagious too. You do know that, right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I always say to my clients that someone is always watching you. So it's up to you what you're going to show them. So showing them you being courageous is contagious. It's contagious. And with me, my mental health day, what led me to make sure that I always schedule my mental health day off is when I had the Bell palsy and watching my father take his last breath. And then at that moment, I said to myself that I was 42 at the time, or 41 at the time. And I had already started to create a 10-year exit strategy. Mm-hmm. So at 51, I was able to retire, because that showed me, and I had to tell myself that I can't continue. I want to live longer. I would like to live longer than I've worked.
Yeah. Yes.
That is our goal. Right? I think we all have something in common, Meg. And one is a peace of mind. We all want a peace of mind, and we all want happiness. Mm-hmm. So my goal is to live longer than I've worked. Yeah. And the only way I can do that is to continue to invest in myself. And I want to share with another tip with your listeners, with the audience, is that whatever you're going through, make sure you have a plan, right? Benjamin Franklin said, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So make sure you have a plan. And in the process of that plan, trust the process. This is how we become burnt out, is because we get in the way of the process and we don't trust the process, and we don't have patience with the process. So trust the process. And if you have goals, break them down into smaller goals so that they are much more manageable. This will minimize you becoming burnt out, because we're trying to focus on so many things at one time, and we're trying to focus on the big goal, when if we was to break them down into much more manageable goals, we'll be able to achieve them much easier.
I feel like you're speaking directly to me, only because I tend to get the big goal. I tend to want to help everybody. I want to heal burnout. I want to heal our medical profession so that we can heal our patients and be there for our patients. And so I get this big idea, but oftentimes I will get to a point where I feel like I'm not moving the needle at all. Right. And then it gets me unmotivated. And then I have to take a step back and say, okay, podcast is growing. Okay. Getting more speaking engagement. You know what I mean? So you have to bring it back to the smaller things. And I have to remind myself each and every day, I am working towards helping our profession heal. And the way I'm showing up at work doing that. And when I focus on the small things, like you're telling me, and I really feel like I needed this message today. That's probably why. But when you say that, and when I hear that, it's way more motivating to me to keep going than when I get a really big picture goal and I feel like I can't get there, like right away. And so I have heard this time and time again, make SMART goals, make them achievable. But sometimes you just need that reminder to keep you motivated to say, show up as your best self every day, work incrementally towards it, recognize what you have already done and have gone through and have gotten to now. And so I think I needed that message today.
Yeah, trust the process and pat yourself on the back. My mother was a nurse. She was in your field also. She retired. So I understand completely, what you do. But you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of yourself. And, God forbid, if my mother wasn't able to take care of herself, she wouldn't have been able to take care of us, and be there for my father when he was passing away from cancer. Mm-hmm. So it means so much when people say that, put the oxygen mask on yourself. And also another tip would be practice positive strips.
What's that?
So a lot of times we're our worst critics. Mm-hmm. And when we're thinking of the negative thoughts, we need to change it, replace it with positive strips, such as the good things that are occurring in your life. Replace it with, so recently I was just in Aruba, right? I'll give it as an example. That was my mental day, my mental week off, right?
That's awesome.
So recently I was in Aruba. So let's just say something comes to mind and telling me, well, Darryl, you can't do it, right? The next goal that I'm trying to accomplish. And it says, you can't do it. It says, Darryl, nobody believes in you, right? Stop wasting time. I have to replace that with sitting on the beach when I was in Aruba, the good times. I have to replace it with positive strips. I have to replace it with walking my dog, my English bulldog, before he passed away. But he's the joy of my heart, love of my life, besides my wife and kids. My kids would say he was my favorite, but that's a different story. But replacing these things with positive strips, thinking of the great things, the good things in life. So I had a client, and she said to me, Darryl, these birds, every morning I hear these birds, and they're just constantly waking me up. And I just can't deal with these birds. And I said to her, Meg, said, well, someone did not wake up to hear these birds today. You see this in your field. So we have to replace our negative thoughts with positive strips. We have to think of the positive and being more optimistic instead of being more pessimistic, especially when it comes to ourselves.
Yeah. My self-critic is pretty tough. And I think, especially in medicine, it's really tough. I think we are very hard on ourselves because we don't want to make mistakes that cost somebody harm or hurt somebody. And I do a lot of teaching around this when I do presentations about changing our language around how hard we are on ourselves. So that we
self-talk.
So that we can, say, I'm going to grow and learn from this, and I can be better for the next patient by learning and growing from this instead of beating ourselves up. And honestly, the research that's been done on self-compassion is stunning. And people that are more successful have more self-compassion for themselves. It's not the opposite way. And so, once I started reading that research, it really got me to kind of flip around and be a little bit easier on myself.
Yeah, we have to change the archaic thinking that, you can do all and be all without taking a break. That's so far from the truth. We have to, another tip is do as you said you do also, is the self-talk. Talk to yourself.
Yeah.
Talk to yourself and stop overthinking. Stop overthinking and trust the process.
Yeah.
But to those, your colleagues that are out there that are helping so many people, the times that you are beating yourself up and second guessing yourself, I want to say, to everyone that we thank you. We thank you for getting up every day and even when you don't feel like it and putting us first. We appreciate it, but I want you to start putting yourself first. But I want you to know that we appreciate the hard work, them long days, them long hours. I have no idea what we would have done without you and your colleagues in the quagmire and the pandemic and the COVID that we dealt with, that we faced. Yeah. And not just that, so many other things that we've faced in the past and we will face in the future. Mm-hmm. But I thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate your colleagues for being there and saying that I'm going to be here to help someone when they ask for it. Yeah. When they ask for it.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. It really does mean a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how you've done a lot of work around finances and financial stability. So tell me a little bit about how that plays into helping us towards our future. Again, you said you had a 10-year plan to make sure that you were able to enjoy your life and not have to work forever and ever. So how does that play into all this?
Right. So great question, Meg. What I end up doing is, what I subscribe to is, my newest book is called You Need an Income, Not a Job. Mm-hmm. You need an income, not a job. Now, before anyone get riled up, let me clarify. I'm not suggesting to anyone or recommending to anyone to quit their day job. I'm suggesting that they create multiple streams of income. So I was able to retire at a young 51, I like to say, while working at my day job. My day job was my seed money to build multiple streams of income. So we have the new graduates. This is graduation season. Mm-hmm. We have the new graduates coming out, right? And we have new entrepreneurs that's being created also. So instead of, what I would suggest to our new graduates, instead of doing a job search, do a income search, multiple streams of income. So let's just say someone may say, well, Darryl, Meg, I don't have the funds to create a business. Mm-hmm. So let me share several multiple streams of income you can create with low risk and high reward. Mm-hmm. Something as simple as a YouTube live stream. YouTube live stream, YouTube will, I believe, deposit $21 and I'm not sorry, 20 will deposit on the 21st of each month money into your account because of your live stream. Now it's going to take some sweat equity, to get that traffic to you. Mm-hmm. You have another way you can build multiple streams of income, a site called Peerspace, peerspace.com. Mm-hmm. Peerspace allows you to rent your home for video shoots, magazine shoots, commercial shoots, maybe even just a meeting place for several hours. So that's a stream of income that you will be receiving without any skin in the game, except for your home. Mm-hmm. We have now what you call rent-a-yard, mm-hmm. where people are actually renting their yard out for several occasions. You may have someone that prefer to park in your yard instead of leaving their vehicle at an airport. Mm-hmm. So people are renting out there. So you have so many different ways that you can start creating multiple streams of income. And you don't have to say that the thinking of working a day job for 30 years is long gone. Mm-hmm. So we have to now start rethinking how we create incomes. And, the average person will do a job search. A wealthy person will do an income search.
Mhm.
And when I say income search, they're going to do an investment because they're trying to invest in things that's going to grow their income,
Mhm.
such as real estate.
Mhm.
So you have a program that's called DSCR. They give DSCR loans for multi units, like a duplex, a triplex, a quad. What they do is they, instead of you, they're requiring like the traditional loans, FHA or VA, these loans, the DSCR loans will give you money or a loan based on the cash flow of the rental.
Mhm.
So if it's renting for 1,400 a month, they're giving you the loan based on that, not based on anything else. But I may add that it will have to be in a entity, a LLC or S corp,
Mhm.
such as that. But they will give you the loan based on the cash flow of the rental. And let's just say someone will say again, well, Darryl, I don't have the funds. Meg, I don't have the funds.
Mhm.
Well, there's another program that's called the GAP loan.
Mhm.
The GAP loan will give you what it is the gap, the down payment from, let's just say the DSCR will give you 75% or 75% for the loan of the rental. Now you're left with 25% that you need for the down payment. The GAP loan will give you that 25% for the down payment for that rental property.
Mhm.
So there are so many different ways that we can create multiple streams of income and not rely just on a job where you may feel that you're not valued,
Mhm.
that you're not being heard, that you're not being seen. There's a phrase that was created last year, I believe, called the Great Resignation.
Mhm.
Because of the pandemic, people began to figure out ways where they can have an income and not a job. So again, full disclaimer, I am not suggesting that anyone to go out and quit their job. I'm only recommending that you start creating multiple streams of income where that you can build generational wealth for you and your family. You can change the narrative of your family and you can change the position of your family because people are concentrating on the win, the W, Meg, and the win is a byproduct of how you position yourself in life.
Mhm. So that's all great information. So my question to you, and you may not know all of this, but when you're getting a gap loan, is it based off like, do you still have to pay it back with percentage rates? How does that, do you know how that?
Yeah, you still have to pay it back with percentage rates. And some gap loans where they may take the first position, the DSCR will have the first position, and the gap loan may have the second position,
Mhm.
or the DSCR will have the first position, and gap loan will just be a private loan, just be a personal loan in some cases, or they just want a percentage off of the profit, but it does come with a with some interest. It depends on what the terms you agree upon,
Mhm.
and also you may if the you can discuss the terms where you can just pay it back once you sell the home if you're doing it as a fix and flip. Now, a DSCR is not for a fix and flip, but you can use a gap loan for a fix and flip. Let's just say if you get hard money from a lender to do a fix and flip, and then you get the gap loan for the down payment or for the word escapes my mind, the gap loan for the holding costs. They may not require that until after the property has been sold.
Okay. And then you just factor that into what you're selling the property for, how much you have to pay back and it's likely with interest over that time, I'm guessing.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
I'm not a super financially savvy person, so I'm asking questions because I'm like, this is all very interesting to me. And I just know sometimes if it's there's higher interest rates on things that are kind of fillers, meaning, so I was just wondering if a gap loan has a little bit higher interest rates.
It does.
Yeah.
It does because it's not traditional.
Right.
So it does. But again, if you're going into it with a plan,
Right.
with a strategy, that let's just say if you're going to do a fix and flip, your plan is to flip that less than 6 months or so, anywhere between 3 months to 6 months if you can.
Yeah.
So as long as you're approaching it with a strategy, then it should work for you. Where it's case by case.
Right. So it's just interesting because, again, I didn't know, you're just bringing to light loans I didn't know were out there. And, I mean, I think people know there's mortgage loans out there, right? But I mean, it's funny, I didn't even know when I first started homeownership that there were different years of loans. I thought a 30-year mortgage was all there was out there. I didn't know that there was a 15-year mortgage. And so, getting a little bit more education, and I didn't really understand, PMI, and you had to have 20%. I didn't understand all these things when we first started out. And I just wonder why we aren't getting more of this education surrounding finances throughout our school career. And, it cracks me up because this is important stuff, like how to pay your taxes, how to create generational wealth. How do you finance a house? How do you, if you want to invest in other real estate, how do you do these things? And it's amazing to me that we don't get foundational knowledge about this.
Yeah, I'm a huge advocate for financial literacy in our schools. We, again, speaking to the graduates, that everyone that's graduated this year, and congratulations on your huge accomplishment. But we go into graduating from schools with huge student debt, right? And then you go into a job. So let's just picture the scenario of you're already poor going into the school, right? And then when you leave the school, you're still poor because now you have this huge debt that you can't pay. It doesn't matter the type of job that you have, you just will not be able to pay that off because the clock keeps ticking. So we need to focus on financial literacy in our schools. We can always talk about, George Washington and all these other different things that happened in history, but how does that really help us
in the day-to-day?
How does that help us build financial freedom? So these are discussions that we need to have in our schools, from elementary all the way up. And I believe Michigan is the first school that has implemented financial freedom in their schools. I believe it's Michigan. I may be wrong, but I know one of the schools have done it. I have to look at my notes, but I believe it was Michigan that has implemented financial freedom in their school system. So that's good to know.
I do think my daughter is 16, my other daughter's 14. I do think they're talking about it in schools more. I don't know that it's a curriculum, but my daughter is very aware that, actually both of them are very aware that if they go to college, that they are very aware of the loans they may need to take and if they have to pay it back, and if their job will allow them to pay it back and live at the same time. And I've just been really glad that, my husband and I are very open with them about financial literacy, but I'm glad that it's somebody else, because sometimes when it comes from your parents, they don't hear it, but I'm glad it's coming from somewhere else where they're, my daughter's starting to look at, if she wants to go to college, and if she goes, she says, well, what's the tuition there? And 4 years of that, and what will I come out with? And she's thinking about it. And I think, that's something that's really important to factor in. You can get a good education for not a lot of money, and it is what you do with it that matters. And I hammer that home to them all the time. You don't have to have a big name behind your education. You need to get the information, and you make of it what you get out of it. I mean, what you personally put into it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I had a discussion with my daughter recently about when she gets married. was I paying for the wedding, or, these discussions? And it was an outright, and it was a hard no.
Mhm. Yeah.
It was a hard no. Now, I have no qualms with giving you money towards growing and securing your future
Yeah.
and helping you grow your incomes, but not to spend 20,000, 30,000, 100,000 or more that some people spend on one day. To me, I just think it doesn't make really a whole lot of sense. So that's why, you have these discussions about financial freedom, about financial literacy, so that if you're giving someone that 10,000, well, turn that 10,000 into uh, multiply it, 10x it, or whatever you need to do,
Yeah.
but not to spend it on one day or on a dress or so. And and also, well, full disclaimer, if I'm giving you this money, then you guys are going to have to write a contract that you're going to stay married.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's an
Right.
investment, right? So,
Indeed.
it, you know, and it's an investment. I love memories. I'm very glad that I had a wedding and it was a beautiful day. But what I remember about the day is all the people that I loved were in one room. And it didn't matter what the room was. It didn't matter if
Right.
it was a barn. It didn't matter if it was out in a field. It was that the people that I loved were there.
Right.
And you know, weddings have become big business. And especially when people are starting their lives, that money can go into an investment that then compounds with interest over time. And man, that 10 grand could turn into $1 million by the time they retire. I mean,
Right.
we really need to be looking at these decisions, especially when people are young, with compound interest out there that can really help them be very financially independent by the time they are retiring. And these are great. I'm glad you've had that conversation with your daughter because I mean that's a big deal.
Yeah, you can use whole life to build your wealth
Yeah.
also.
Mhm.
To position your family in a better position that they're in now. And
Mhm.
another tip that I wanted to share with the listeners about uh, creating multiple streams of income. You can also do proofreading.
Mhm.
Someone that's love an avid reader. You can go to a site that's called Fiverr.com and be on there as a freelancer or as a contractor, and you could do proofreading. If someone that likes audio books, you can loan your voice out to audio books. You
Mhm.
create an ebook. So there are so many different ways that you can create multiple streams of income with low risk and a high reward.
And based off your talents and what you like.
Right.
Because, I know my husband and I have talked about real estate and he goes, "I don't want to be a landlord." And I'm like, "Okay. Well, let's not
Right.
be landlords then. Let's do something
Right.
else." And so, you know, again, you can tailor all of these things to who you are and who you want to be. I have actually looked into lending my voice for books because I've been told I have a really soothing voice. And so that's something I've looked into to make another stream of income, just like you're talking about, because I don't mind. I don't mind reading a book and having it recorded and sending it out to the world. I mean, that's great. If I can get paid for that, that's awesome.
Well, for my next book, I'll have to reach out to you then.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've published 5, so if I decide to do 6, then I'll reach out to Meg then.
Well, when I write my book, I'm going to reach out to you for all of the information that I need to know.
Yeah, yeah. So there's so many ways that you can create multiple streams of income, and nowadays you can do it where I had an interview and I believe it was called "Working Your Happy Place," something like this, right? And what is your happy place? So nowadays with technology that we can embrace, you can pretty much work anywhere in the world, right? So again, I spoke about being in Aruba, and I was still able to have my life coaching sessions while I was in Aruba. Now, it was only one day because again, that was my mental health week off.
Hmm.
But I allowed the client, I did the session with the client that one day, and it was
Hmm.
only an hour anyway, so it didn't take a whole lot of time out of my day.
Hmm.
But the point is that you can create multiple streams of income, and it's so many avenues that you can take advantage of.
I also like to point out that you doing that from Aruba shows your client that that is a possibility that they can do that type of work from somewhere they love and do something that they love. And if they want to, right? You could have taken the whole week off, but you decided I'm going to do this. It's an hour. I feel good about this. But you then show your clients that this can be done. And that's really powerful.
Well, if you recall, I said earlier that someone is always watching you. So
Yeah.
what are you going to show them? Right.
Yeah.
So, by showing them, and again, people can create such as creating that multiple streams of income, uh, such as yourself, just being a how-to, creating a how-to or a how-to course or how to consultations on how to be a PA. So there's so many different ways that we can create multiple streams of income where we don't have to feel like we are married to a job that we don't feel appreciated, and that's not in all cases. But what I want to say to anyone that's in a position of authority and they have a team, I want you to understand that your products are not your assets. Your team members,
Mhm.
your employees are your assets.
Yes.
So I hope that sinks in to someone that's listening.
Yeah. Yeah. You take care of your people, they're going to take care of your customers or whatever that is, whether it's you're selling something or your customer care. But I fully stand behind that. Leadership really needs to make sure they're protecting their employees.
Indeed.
Well, I could talk to you all day long. I'm not going to lie. We could go on for hours. I am going to say thank you so much for being here. Thank you for lending all of your wisdom, all of your tips. And I will have links in the podcast notes to your books, to your social media. I can't wait for people to connect. And yeah, you need an income, not a job. That is great.
Thank you, Meg.
All right. Well, you take care. Have a great day. And I will see y'all back here next week.